Hey everyone, you're with Tesla Tom and thanks for joining us on Ludicrous Feed. You may have read that Tesla recently updated the navigation app for its cars as a software update. Usually I get a notification on my phone when there's a software update, but for this one, Tesla kind of just snuck it in and I woke up one morning surprised with a pop-up screen in my car telling me the navigation had been updated. Before we go on any further guys, if you haven't done so already, please take a moment to hit subscribe so you can stay up to date with our latest videos. Well, I'll be honest with you, and this is particularly hard for me to say as a Tesla fanboy. The previous navigation software in the Tesla was pretty rubbish. There, I said it. Whew, that was good to get that off my chest. It sent me places that I knew wasn't right, and used routes that clearly didn't make any sense as a local, like using motorways for short periods when a surface road would have sufficed. So I resorted to using Waze quite a bit because that's what all the Uber drivers out there use, so it must be fairly decent, I figured. So now that Tesla has updated its navigation software, I was keen to find out how it compared to what I considered to be the gold standard, that being Waze. I used both Waze and the Tesla nav side by side for a week when driving around town, and these are the main differences between them that I'd like to share with you. Voice. Let's start by comparing the voice between the two. The voice in Waze is clearer and it sounds more confident. The pronunciation of street names is also overall better. The Tesla Nav's new voice sounds calmer and she does seem more pleasant compared to before the update. There are still a couple of glitches in the samples. For example, the word 3 doesn't come out. It sounds more like she's about to say 3 before it's cut short. She also struggles with our local Aboriginal place and street names. For example, she will say Warringah instead of locals. Will pronounce it as Warringah. I've noticed that Waze doesn't seem to have this issue, perhaps because it's a social media platform disguised as a navigation app. I guess it actually listens to local feedback and thus the sampling is more accurate. More on the social media engagement aspect later. Both Waze and the native Tesla nav speak often enough to be helpful and give enough warning before a turn. Both also know not to speak too often to be annoying, especially when it's a straight road, so I can't fault either here. Just a minor detail here, but it does add a bit more weight to the argument for Waze.
At the roundabout, go straight on.
So at a roundabout, Waze will tell you to go straight on, or take a left, or take a right, whereas Tesla will ask you to take the third exit, or take the first exit. This might just seem to be a personal thing, but I prefer to be told to go straight on instead of the second exit at a four-way roundabout. It makes more sense when you're driving as opposed to having to waste a few milliseconds to process that direction. I suppose it might be different if it's a five-way roundabout, if the roads aren't exactly perpendicular to each other. Then that's where the numbered exit might come in handy. Finally, I personally like a female with an English accent telling me where to go, so I'm okay with the Tesla voice. Hence why I also use English Kate as my default Waze voice. I also note that there's a US boy band voice available. That's too funny. Overall, I have to hand the voice category to Waze. Not only is the clarity and pronunciation superior to that of Tesla, there are also over 50 different voices to choose from in multiple different languages and accents. It really is hard to beat. The actual map, let's talk about that. I'll start with Waze. I personally find the interface on Waze too colourful. Sure, it's clear enough which route you need to take, but there are actually a lot of distractions on screen. For example, occasionally you'll get an alternate route as an offshoot in another colour, telling you the speed limit. I've never quite worked that out. Is that meant to be a guide to tell me how fast I could go if I choose to use that way? Shouldn't Waze just tell me which way is the best way to go instead of putting me in two minds? Maybe it's just my old brain not keeping up, I don't know. I realise you can go into the options to toggle your settings, but honestly, I don't have the patience to work out each one through. Now this is where the new Tesla interface has really stepped up its game. The new navigation on the instrument cluster is the best I've seen in any car. It manages to take a simple, minimalistic look without losing the detail. You'll get about 2 or 3 key upcoming street names and speech bubbles. I also like the fact that it seamlessly switches between 2D and 3D mode depending on how fast you're going. It zooms right in on top-down 2D mode when you come to an intersection, and it advises you schematically on the best lane to be in. Now, not to be outdone is Waze, which also does switch nicely between 2D and 3D depending on your speed, although it doesn't visually tell you which lane to be in at an intersection. It does give you voice guidance, however. I guess it would be nice if both voice and visual guidance were available to help reinforce the advice. With the new Tesla Nav update, gone is the pictorial representation of a freeway turnoff. It used to replace the map with a picture of the road demonstrating when to turn off. I must admit, I wasn't a fan of that, and I'm glad it's gone personally. It felt a little bit cheesy to me. Another minor point here, but I like the fact that the new Tesla Nav shows you where you've been. That is, the route you've travelled remains on the map behind you. I quite like that. Okay, let me just touch on roundabouts just once again. It's funny how this seems to be a recurring theme for me. In Waze, you really do notice the jerkiness of going through a roundabout. You really do feel the whole screen warping around as your car navigates the roundabout. I've noticed that this doesn't quite occur with the Tesla nav. The map will smoothly rotate as you go through a roundabout. Maybe it's something to do with the refresh rate or better GPS directed location tracking. I can't be sure, but whatever it is, I prefer the Tesla nav on this issue. Also, just another gripe about Waze is that in its pursuit of finding you the quickest way, you'll go through smaller streets and then end up having to make a difficult turn into a main road. For me personally, I don't like this, especially if I'm in an area I'm not familiar with. I'm not sure how much of a time saver this is personally. It's certainly not good for anyone's mental health having to turn unnecessarily onto a main road. This then leads me to talk about integration. Of course, you can't beat the native Tesla app for this, given it is actually built into the car's instrument cluster that is right there in front of you. The fact that you get another big overview of your route in the middle console really is quite handy. You can quickly scroll through the rest of your directions quite easily to see upcoming turns. I must admit, I'm only using an iPhone 7, so looking at a small screen for navigation makes it quite difficult. I suppose if I had a plus-size phone or maybe even a small tablet mounted onto the car, it would be easier. So in this category of map and integration, you really can't go past Tesla's in-house navigation, given it is built into the car itself. Alerts and distractions. Okay, I'm going to talk about the social media aspect of Waze. Now, as a disclaimer, and before you start lecturing me on this topic in the comments, I realize that the Tesla nav and of course Google Maps also relies on social media to some degree for some key functions like live traffic. Navigation programs need the data from its users to give an accurate picture of what the traffic is doing currently, and that's fine, I don't have a problem with that. What I'm talking about with Waze is all the alerts that come up from time to time. This really, I guess, is a love-hate relationship, and I guess, again, I know you can toggle the settings in Waze, but honestly, as I said earlier, I don't have the patience to go through them all. You'll know that if you have used Waze to any extent, that alerts do pop up telling you of roadworks, stopped cars, speed cameras, red light cameras, police cars, etc, etc. Interestingly, the one thing they don't have popping up is the variable school zone speed limit. That would actually be quite handy. For those who don't live in Sydney, around school areas we have what we call school zones, whereby the speed limit will temporarily drop to 40 kilometers an hour around the hours of school starting and school finishing. If you're not paying attention, you will pick up a nice fine driving at what you think is the speed limit, but in fact it's 20 kilometers an hour lower. It'd be nice if Waze had these alerts coming up. Having done a road trip in the US last year, we found that there were way more alerts that popped up compared to what we have back in Australia. I guess I'm in two minds about this. I suppose it's useful to know if there's a speed camera coming up or if there's a police car up ahead, but then it's also distracting to the driver seeing things pop up all the time. Driving is stressful enough when it's busy. I'm not sure if we ever need to be distracted further by these things. I'm yet to see any alerts pop up on the Tesla app, to be honest, and again, that's just my personal preference. I do prefer them simple, minimalistic look. Just show me the map and the lay of the land ahead of me and just tell me which way to go. I'll take care of the street signs. Although I must say there is one alert that I quite like on Waze, and that's the traffic indicator. If you're stuck in heavy traffic, it'll show you a vertical bar with how much longer you can expect to be waiting in that jam. Call me old school, but I personally don't like that much engagement when I'm driving. I don't want to inform using Waze to my loved ones that I'm 5 minutes away, and I don't really care if there are other Wazes on the road near me. I don't really feel the need to fiddle with Spotify through Waze if I'm navigating to somewhere new. I kind of find all that too distracting. So this is where the Tesla nav wins for me. I'll take that clean, simple interface any day. In terms of standard metrics, both Waze and the native Tesla nav do the basics well. Both will tell you the distance remaining, the time remaining to your destination, and your arrival time. You can also choose to avoid tolls on both interfaces. That's fairly standard these days, I guess. Waze will give you a speedometer and alert you if you're over the speed limit according to what you set, but honestly, that's all a bit of a joke compared to the fact that Tesla has all that information anyway in its instrument cluster, as with any vehicle you're driving, I guess. Waze's GPS-derived speedometer just really doesn't compare. Just a few other differences to finish up. Waze really chews up your phone battery. For example, it ate up 8% of my iPhone battery traveling 13 kilometers. Even with the phone plugged into the car charger, it will barely hold its charge while Waze is on. Just something to be wary of. Initially, when you plug in your destination, Waze will give you some handy options like direct you to the nearest parking, nearest restaurant, or nearby gas stations, which I guess is not so applicable to Teslas. I've found on a couple of occasions it is slow in initializing the route. Not cool if you want to make a quick getaway. Tesla's native map is normally pretty efficient in calculating the route, even before the major update. Of course, the Tesla nav doesn't have as much engagement as Waze, but it does have more features that relate to the Tesla itself. Of course, you can select the closest supercharger. It'll also tell you how much of your car's battery life is remaining, or whether you will have enough of the return journey. Okay guys, well that's just a few differences between Waze and the new Tesla Nav update. There are other features that I didn't cover, such as Tesla's new trip planner, which will guide you to a supercharger if necessary, or the new online routing function, which will give you an alternative route in real time if it will save you more than X number of minutes, where you can select what X is. Waze, of course, has plenty of options under its settings, which I won't cover either. Overall, and this is purely from a personal perspective, I now prefer the new Tesla navigation, which, despite it not being perfect, it is what I need when I'm driving my Model S. The routing is now better, and I like the minimalistic interface, and of course, you can't beat the fact that it's actually inbuilt into the car. Of course, I'm a massive fanboy, but I did use Waze quite a bit before the new Tesla update, because, let's face the facts, it was pretty rubbish prior to the update. But again, as I keep saying, this is one of the biggest reasons why Tesla will be ahead of the pack when it comes to electric cars, simply because it can update its software so quickly and across its entire network around the world. I mean, how do you honestly compare with that? Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave a comment below if you have any other thoughts regarding the new Tesla navigation update, or any thoughts about Waze for that matter. I'm sure I've missed something, so let me know please, I'd love to hear from you. Well, I hope it's a lovely day wherever you are in this world, and as always, happy charging. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being part of the energy revolution. If you haven't done so already, be sure to hit subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos. If you're about to buy a Tesla, use our promo code on screen to score free unlimited supercharging. Happy charging!